Hello, and welcome to the Dovecote. These birds should not be here. Actually, hang on. We'll let them leave with grace. Welcome to the Dovecote. Today is Friday, January 12th at 6 o'clock p.m. EST. It is an unusual time. That is because our intended guest, who we will be seeing later nonetheless, or not later, but on another date, couldn't make it, but I still want to use the slot, so we have the enviable Victor Navypink, artist and writer for a variety of RPG things, mostly D&D 5e. Feel free to talk about yourself. Tell folks about yourself.
Hello everyone. As um, I've been introduced already, but so maybe I won't go over the basics again. Um, yeah, I am working on a bunch of RPG things at the moment, most notably an D&D 5e campaign book. So it's not like anything that groundbreaking, I guess, because it's still D&D, but yeah, it's pretty ambitious because it is a one-man project kind of. Well, minus proofreading, which actually you've helped me with. So, and outside of that main thing, I'm also a university student. I've dabbled in game dev, and by that I mean I had a multiple years long project that I've abandoned. And I've done music. I am, as you've mentioned, an artist. I am also occasionally a gamer, I guess, if you can call it that, on Twitch and YouTube. And I mainly communicate
Oh
via
shit.
the outer world with via Twitter. Yeah.
Hell yeah! I'm putting up the art that you've done for Sapphic World so that we can show that later. Because it's
Is it
very good.
appropriate for Twitch?
I think so. I think it's fine. There's no like dicks or butts in it. I mean, I guess there's kind of a butt, but anyways,
Kind of.
yeah, you, I've been doing some proofreading for your stuff, and I really like it. I as people know, as viewers would know, I am I'm kind of a 5e retiree, I guess.
Mm,
I used to play a lot of 5e, um, and so it's been fun getting to kind of use that knowledge in a new context, and it's been really great, like getting. I mean, the Sapphic World art that you've done has been very cool. Um,
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, we're gonna we got some news, we got some discussion. It's gonna be weird because like we're gonna have this episode today, and then on Monday I'm gonna have Emily Cave Girls. So it's gonna be like a bit of a double dip for Dovecote. But yeah, I guess I'll start by asking, are there any projects? I mean, uh, I guess I mean I'd probably ask more directly. I'd love to hear you talk. Sorry, I'd love to hear you talk a bit about your 5e supplement, the Heart of Darkness.
Yeah, so the Heart of Darkness started as a home game, as a lot of D&D supplements tend to do. Um, we were we finished Waterdeep Dragon Heist with my guy IRL group because I also had I previously run or started running Curse of Strahd for an online group, but that didn't work out fully. And then I ran Dragon Heist to completion with my IRL high school friends. And so after we finished that, I got to thinking, well, what if I did like a homebrew prequel, but still in the Forgotten Realms? And I was getting into Witcher 3 at the time, and I was just like, I guess I was just exposed to is the best term because I hadn't played it myself at that point. I was just exposed to Hearts of Stone for the first time. I don't know if you've played it or watched it, but I was like, what if I just did this plot but in D&D, and that grew into a much bigger thing. But yeah, that's also where the title comes from because I was like, I can't because originally my working title was literally just Waterdeep Hearts of Stone, so I had to adjust from that. And I was like, what sounds vaguely similar to that, and it's also not just like a random cluster of words, and that's where the title came from. So yeah, it is a demon-packed plot, is the best way I can describe it, but it's also a sandbox and kind of a gothic horror campaign, kind of a dark fantasy campaign, a lot of political intrigue or just intrigue in general. I have a hard time describing the kind of overall themes and plot of this because it is a sandbox, so there's a lot of variation in as far as like players can kind of choose what they want to experience from the things that are presented in different areas, as is the nature of a sandbox, which I think is really cool in a D&D campaign because you kind of get to yeah, basically adjust your experience to what your players are interested in, and there's a little bit of everything in it, but it's definitely coherent in the sense that it's all kind of steeped in this vaguely gothic, vaguely dark fantasy kind of aesthetic, I guess. Um, yeah, and I've also published a player options document. It is kind of a companion document to the campaign, but it is player facing and it's free. So it can be used outside of the campaign, but it's made with setting in mind. So there is, for example, reworked humans to have like sub races based on the different places where you can be from as a human, which is kind of the approach I went with for some reason. And yeah, subclasses. There's a few subclasses, a few spells and stuff like that. And yeah, I also have a bestiary app, which is just a lot of the stat blocks from the campaign just kind of ported into its own document if, in case someone wants it. So yeah, I've been, I guess, hustling on the side around the campaign, but I'm mostly working on the book itself. If you have like any questions about the campaign, because I tend to kind of ramble and I
Y-
forget what I was
yeah.
supposed to be saying.
Sorry. There's a is there something? Is there noise coming from behind you somewhere?
No,
Okay, there's
outside
not
of
anymore.
my okay, oh my God, outside of my PC, which yeah, it might be an issue.
That's okay.
Now you've scared me. Is there someone in my house? Is there a ghost?
No, it was just there was some like static. Um,
No.
but yeah,
Very ominous.
I think it's a very cool uh, campaign from what I've read. I've only read the couple, the first couple chapters for proofreading.
Yeah, you've read chapter one and two and the introduction. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's also all like similar to the icon that you have here. Like it's all in that sort of like thick lined and like it's like gauche or what do you call it? Gauche, whatever you call it. G
Yeah.
G A U Gauche shading, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting for you to describe it because you've had a fair amount of exposure to it, and from an outside perspective, I guess it's easier for you to kind of conceptualize what it's like because to me it's just uh it's similar to other things I've done as far as like art style and things like that because I've drawn all the art for it. So I have a hard time describing my own art style, for example. So feel free to give your thoughts if you want
Yeah,
on
it's very cool. You're very
yeah.
good at like light and like shading and like shadows and like kind of like casting a scene. I think it's very cool looking. I really like it.
Yeah, I was going for a kind of atmospheric look that isn't necessarily like hyper realistic the way you see in a lot of D&D supplements and other fantasy products. I was going for something more expressive, I guess.
Yeah, it's very neat. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess I'll kind of are there any other projects that you're working on that you're excited about?
Um, Not really, I guess, other than passing a semester in uni, but that's a different issue entirely. That is a project in a way. Oh, thank you, Narl, in chat. Narl is a visual novel developer.
Oh, hell yeah.
Also, shout out to him.
Victor's art is really good. Um, yeah. Um, I guess kind of in the same vein. Are there any projects from other people that you're excited about? Any things that you're eyeing, like any RPGs, games, like anything that you're very excited about?
So, I am actually following this one TTRPG system that doesn't seem to get a lot of traction, and I'm not sure why. Um, one second. I'm gonna link it in chat.
Hell yeah. You might want to link it to me because I'm not sure if the
Okay, yeah,
yeah, and then I'll link it because I'm not. You might get you might get night botted.
yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, hang on, we're doing the
Um,
interview, and I'm calling
yeah,
in the bird in Trero. Hang on, the awesome interview bird.
okay.
There we go. Bird is here.
Very important bird. So while I'm searching for something to link,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I kind of when the whole OGL fiasco was happening,
Mhm.
I was kind of looking for, as were probably all of people, I was looking for a different system to try. That isn't D&D, but ultimately it didn't work out because I don't have a very dedicated group. As in, my
Mhm.
players are kind of the kind of people who can only meet like once a month or something. And
Right.
we were playing the Heart of Darkness campaign, and they all were just like, "Yeah, we need to finish the campaign and nothing else." So
Are there
yeah,
any
so
like uh I mean I guess you're like are there any games besides D&D that like you really like have played a lot of?
that's
So
actually a very embarrassing thing to admit, but I
it's
haven't
okay.
played another I actually haven't played another system outside of 5e, which I think is extremely sad. Um, but like I bought the Zweihander starter kit for yeah, like the kind of the fancy one. I don't know if you're aware of it. It's like a boxed set.
Isn't that guy a piece of shit? Sorry.
I don't know actually.
I'm
I
sorry.
haven't dug
This
too
is
far into the discourse, but like yeah, I think there is some discourse around that. But the system looked cool, and I wanted to try it out, but I never got the chance to. And I also wanted to try out Pathfinder Second Edition, as were probably all the people. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've yeah, just like I would be interested in trying another system, but I just never got the players to actually play with.
yeah.
So,
Sorry, I have I just looked up. I have Zweihander guy blocked. So
oh
there's probably
no.
something up there. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
yeah, I think there is some
um
play a different TTRPG. Yes, Narrow, thank you. I will.
there's listen, I think there's always drama. There's always shit happening in RPGs.
Yeah.
I wish I had a better sense of why I blocked that person, but I do remember. Um, anyway, sorry, not to get set on that.
Oh no, it's fine. I block a lot of people for extremely petty reasons, so I get it.
Yeah. Um, I I mean, listen. Here's what I'm gonna say. I am the play a different teach RPG person. I am I am going to try and make you play other RPGs. It's, because I I guess like I don't want to be like um I don't know. I feel like there's a version of this interview where I'm like very weird and like self-centered about this. I kind of just want to know more about like what like I have a curiosity more than
Mm-hmm.
anything. Like
Yeah.
I guess like what is like playing D&D and like being a D&D person like in like the post OGL era.
Mm, so my group is really not all that familiar with the kind of OGL drama, so I haven't been paying attention, and they don't own a single official D&D product. So I think we're kind of like yeah, we're very detached from the kind of politics of it. I've tried to explain it to them, but it's kind of irrelevant to our play experience. So it's just kind of Like we barely use the 5e rules as it is with them. I'm the kind of DM who really adjusts to the group, and they really don't care about mechanics, so neither do I when I'm playing with them. But with another group, I might be more tactical because that's kind of my area of interest, one of my areas of interest, I guess, outside of political intrigue. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, but with them, it's very much. We might as well not be playing with any rule set because it's just like very casual. It's kind of like, yeah, do you want to do a dice roll for that? Sure, but yeah, it's the mechanics don't really affect us, so they aren't really attached to brand. I think it's also because it's a very niche hobby in Poland where I am.
right.
So people aren't all that invested in the like online drama regarding that because they would have to first be invested in TTRPGs as an industry, and here it's like we have like two shops that sell like RPG rule books, and it's mostly just D&D 5e in my city. So it's like yeah, it's really a small presence, I guess. So unless someone is like in the TTRPG publisher sphere or just kind of terminally online, which I am both of these things, then I guess they don't really know about it.
Yeah. Um, I am. I'm interested in that because I think that is like a very common experience. Like me and Duck last week were talking about the idea, or I guess 2 weeks ago, whatever. We're talking about the idea that um, yeah, it was last week. It was last Monday. We were talking about the idea that in Japan, Call of Cthulhu is very popular, and
Yeah.
that's just not a frame of reference that in the English speaking sphere that we really
Mm.
have. Um, and so I think that context is important. Uh, that
Yeah.
play another RPG is a sentence in English, right?
Yeah,
um,
yeah, very much. I mean, I could technically buy rulebooks for other RPGs. I think they exist, but it's like it's very hard to find them. And once I got my group invested enough to be able to kind of play with D&D mechanics, I didn't want to confuse them with another system because like they
right.
have a hard time enough. Like they have a hard enough time already with following vaguely following the rules set of 5e. So yeah, it's a kind of yeah, it's definitely a group specific issue, but yeah, if I ever get another group, I think I would want to try another system at some point.
Yeah. Um, I have not played RPGs in person for a while for similar reasons because on Long Island there's just a lot of it's all D&D too. I play on the
Mm,
internet because I want to play other stuff, you know.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, um, I guess if you were to play something else, are there things that you're eyeing? Anything that you'd really like to play?
I like the idea of and again, I don't know how you pronounce this. I think it's kult, but it could also be cult. The it's cult spelled with a K, right? I think it's Swedish or something.
Oh,
It's also like a horror RPG. It's I think it's a little bit similar to Call of Cthulhu, but it's more occult, I think,
neat.
which I'm always very into. But yeah, I need to get into it. Apparently, it's some weird thing where if you want to play it, you can't read the rule book or something because there's a bit of the rule book that's like only for the DM's eyes
Oh,
or something
interesting.
like that. It's very esoteric, I guess.
Huh.
Yeah, and Warhammer Fantasy role-playing, as one person in chat pointed out, is also something that I've been thinking of.
Yeah, Warhammer Fantasy is actually coming back. That's something that I think I'm going to talk about next week. But it's
Mm.
it's very interesting. Age of Sigmar, they just basically dumped and they're doing Warhammer Fantasy again, which is neat, I suppose. Uh, Good for them.
Yeah, I would be I've been considering that once my book is like finished, I wanted to convert it to some other system or multiple other systems if I have the time for it. I
Mhm.
think it would be neat, but I would have to find a system that doesn't actively obstruct the storytelling that already is there. So, for example, a system with no combat mechanics or something wouldn't work because there's a lot of combat in this.
Yeah.
So,
I'm interested to like I have to look more at like part of the problem with like recommending games is that like I feel like if you say like, oh, I want like social um I want like social deduction and like politics and stuff like
mm,
that. um I feel like there's like an urge to be like, oh, you should play what is it, Possum Creek Court of Flowers or something, the Flower Court. It's like, oh, you should play the Flower Court, or you should play some other like politics game, and it's like, mm, the thing that the person is excited about when they say, "Oh, I like political games," is politics in the context of an adventure, right? Am I accurate in saying that?
yeah, yeah, I think so because my kind of game design approach broadly is I think it was very affected by this one game design workshop I went to in middle school actually. That's how far back my game deving um interests go to, I guess. And it was this game design workshop, and one of the speakers on it was a guy who was on the writer team for Witcher 2 and 3.
Hmm.
And he basically walked us through the design process that they had at CD Projekt uh, for um, for designing quests and side quests specifically. And I think that's kind of sunk really deep into my philosophy since then because I very much treats my kind of RPG writing as like a series of quests. It sounds kind of gamey when you put it like that, but I try to kind of make it more organic. But I think it's a useful framework to use, where you kind of think of, okay, what are the options? Like, is this linear? Does this have some kind of interesting choice for the players? What are the rewards for this? Why would the players care about this quest? Things like that. And yeah, if you, I kind of work by splitting things up into quests a lot of the time, especially in settlements and things like that, where you have a lot of NPCs, and I kind of want to give everyone something to do or say or offer to the party. So yeah, the quest thing is definitely um, a choice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, Sapphic World, for example, has like everything is split into quests. Like everything is
Mm,
a character gives you a quest, you go on it. Um,
yeah.
uh, there's usually a reward for completing it. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely agree with that philosophy. And I feel like I don't know. I guess part of my thing is that like I I think that people welcome back, Lilith. I think people should give more precise recommendations when people say I've only ever played D&D and I'm looking for a second game. Because I just feel like I don't know. I feel like people give shitty recommendations. People give like recommendations that you cannot play for very long. Um,
Mm,
like I think Fellowship is like Fellowship or His Majesty the Worm or like some other game with Ultraviolet Grasslands as a setting. Like those are good recommendations, but like if someone's like, "Oh, I like the fantasy part of D&D," and you're like, "Oh, you should play fucking I don't know. I'm trying to think of a um or like oh, I like doing romance in RPG in D&D, and someone's like, "Oh, you should play Some Mermaids Touch Your Dick." Uh or whatever the game
is
is
that
called.
real?
It's a good
What?
game. It's a good game, but it's not a,
Great.
it's a one-shot game where you cover your physical body in like various slimes. It's not
Interesting.
an adventure game. Um, and I don't know. I really like adventure games, and I think that there should be more indie adventure games, and I think that like uh I think that D&D has a monopoly partially. I mean, partially because Wizards of the Coast just fucking sucks,
Yeah,
and partially because because you know it's hard to convince people to swap to a different game if a lot of the games available just aren't made for like 12, 20 sessions.
yeah.
Anyways, sorry. That's
Yeah,
my
no,
rant about.
it was a valid tangent, I think. Yeah, I have some issues with D&D as a system. A lot of the issues are already, you know, already widely discussed
Mm,
as Twitter discourse or whatever other kind of discourse, YouTube discourse. Um, but I think one thing that it kind of bothers me about D&D that I don't see brought up as often because it's not like an objective complaint, it's just my personal taste, is D&D kind of, at least modern D&D, leans kind of very heavily into this kind of more lighthearted, kind of almost comedy adventure kind of fun. Um, I don't want to say whimsical, but it's primarily kind of lighthearted, kind of family friendly,
mm.
and I like that grit in my campaigns. So if the system supported something more like that, then it would be cool. But yeah, I guess player characters being overpowered and things like that is definitely something that bothers me in D&D.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I thing that hit me about 5e when I stopped playing it was just like it's not really made for anything above fifth level, is it?
mm,
It kind of breaks.
yeah, it definitely feels more like you're playing as superheroes than like fantasy adventures in like a more kind of classic fantasy sense, I guess.
Mm.
I definitely like more kind of grounded settings and experiences. I feel like I feel like they're generally better for like storytelling, or at least my storytelling, where I kind of lean into like human politics or like humanoid politics over like something that is, very fantastical.
Yeah. Me and my friend Grief are actually working on like an OSR-ish game that uses that's like very like human centric and is gonna have like combat that's very like you have to like do a special move to like flip your sword over to like bash someone with the pommel or like the
Mm,
pommel and guard if if they have plate armor. Like we're going for like a very like I write a lot of really silly shit. I write a lot of like power fantasy shit, but I also agree. I have a fondness for like kind of grounded fantasy. I think there's a lot to do there.
yeah, another system that kind of attempts to go in that direction is the Witcher RPG, which I am aware it's not very popular, like the TTRPG version. I don't know if
Yeah.
you are aware of it, yeah. But it- I've been kind of scared of it because I don't like the look of the rule books.
Hmm.
They seem kind of lazily put together on like the graphical side, but I think the mechanics are solid. I just don't have the time to like fully read through the rule book and absorb it properly instead of just like kind of um, flipping through it, being like, okay, how do they do this thing and how do you do the character creation and what options do you have? Just broadly, because I've kind of seen different systems broadly, but I haven't really properly gotten into a system other than D&D yet. So yeah.
Yeah. I feel like an element that I like. Well, okay. Like my concern with the Witcher RPG has just been that it's going to be like Cyberpunk, and I really don't like Cyberpunk. I really don't like long skill lists. That's a big no-no for me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I think like sitting down and reading an RPG and like determining if it's right for you can be tricky, but also I think very fulfilling. And also very good for like expanding your own like palette. But uh, it's something I do a lot when I'm writing. But also it can be difficult. It can be like challenging to wrap your head around mechanics or like get the time to even read a whole book.
Yeah.
But yeah. Uh, okay. I think we'll go into news if you want to.
Okay.
Hell yeah. Uh, and Cordis arriving from a beautiful mountain peak in the distant wilds, calm,
There it
collected,
is.
gathered. Um,
Hmm.
time for suffering. Time for the news. um,
Nice. I love the suffering portion where we all suffer.
so let's talk about this because we disagree on. Oh wait, hang on. We're not going to talk about this first.
We
I
we
lied.
vaguely disagree,
We'll
but
talk
I
about that
haven't
later.
read this fully, so maybe I'm missing some context for this take.
Yeah. I think we do. We'll go to that later though, because that's the second story. I'm also
Stay
just really
tuned for
quickly.
when we argue about things later.
Yes. So, something I just want to make folks aware of, and also want to look at some projects for, is that Zine Quest is open. I'm gonna have a game in Zine Quest. I'm gonna have Biotraffication, my fucking alien romance horror game. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, lots of cool stuff on here. Something that I did identify and want to talk about is the discover more and then popular. Um, there is a very heavy in the most popular a lot of two color games, which I think is really cool. A lot of like this is tan and pink. This is black and like this is kind of like a tan and a dark blue,
Yeah.
black and white. Um, and also very like OSR, like Ratcatcher, The Sewers of Maristel, dark fantasy RPG,
Hmm.
um, minimalistic old school tile based dungeon crawl. Uh, I don't know about Godspark, but it's solo, so maybe not so OSR. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that that's like. I mean, it makes sense because like
Hmm.
you know
Yeah. I think I have a take on this. I don't know how good of a take it is, and if you're gonna agree with me on that, but I think it's like a mix of practical reasons and kind of aesthetic preferences, I guess. The practical reasons being, first of all, it is easier to print, and a lot of zines do get printed, I think, because they're short, and a lot of people like printing their things, I think.
yeah
Um, from what I've seen by being on the server uh, for um, for the zine thing. So it's probably a printing concern for black and white things, especially. Secondly, I think it's cheaper to commission artists for black and white things, but I could be wrong on that because I don't know commission prices very well, because I haven't looked around for commissions at any point. But I think if an artist is, for example, offering like a full color option or a black and white option, then it might be cheaper to do black and white. And you know, and also if you're commissioning different artists for different pieces, it might be easier to get a cohesive look for the whole thing because you're just using the same color scheme everywhere.
yeah.
So I think it's easier if you're not an artist yourself, maybe.
No, I think that's
And
very
yeah,
right.
yeah, and also the aesthetic thing being that kind of the pivot away from modern D&D, which is it's very kind of hyper realistic, kind of painterly look that maybe some people associate with Wizards of the Coast at this point.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
Hodag is feasting. Hodag is an artist who does that like old like D&D like AD&D style,
Mm.
which I really like. I think it's very cool.
Yeah, I do
Um,
like that style.
but yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think like something that I forget very often as a person who does her own art
Mm.
for her books is like, well, for the most part, um, is that like other people when they make an RPG, they gotta be like, oh, I gotta like pay people for this. I gotta pay people for art.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And like I need to imagine an aesthetic for this, or find someone who can imagine an aesthetic for this, and then
Mm.
like get either one artist or multiple artists to like do this. Which I will say, if you are an artist and you feel as if you can write games, you already have a big advantage over the rest of the people making TTRPGs. Um, because like you can just go in there and fuck it up. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I can't imagine just being someone who has absolutely no like experience doing art, trying to do a book with a decent overall look because you can commission artists to do different illustrations, but what if you commission different people to do different illustrations and they don't know the actual layouts that you're going to be using and you just place them at random and it's even though the illustrations are good and you may have paid a lot for them, it might still look weird. The final thing because you don't have like an art director because you're not like a big company which has all these extra people working on all these things. I know that makes sense, but yeah, that would scare me if I was just writing and hiring different artists.
I don't want to be mean, but I keep seeing this one, and it's really
Mm-hmm.
funny. Like, why is it just a guy?
Yeah, it's a choice, but it grabs your attention, so maybe that's the point.
I guess it does. It's just a man. Um,
I have I have problems getting people to like click on my things most of the time.
it's hard.
So yeah,
Oh, train.
yeah, I've
Uh,
I've settled on like big text at least for my YouTube videos.
yeah, it's really interesting because Kickstarter recommends you don't put text in these, but almost everybody does because it's like, no, fuck you. I'm putting text in this. What are you talking about, dumbass? Um, yeah. Uh, oh god, fucking AI art. At least it looks like
Mm.
AI art.
I know you're around for it, but or if I mentioned it to you, but I was approached uh by a guy one time for the work trades I do, and he sent me some kind of previous project of his and it was all AI art,
Uh,
and it was
yuck.
just horribly laid out in like something that looked basically like a Word document with images.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not gonna work with with someone like who does this kind of thing.
I think it's
He was like, no, we're not using AI on this current project. I'm like, I don't believe that. Like, no.
it's very important to note that like if you put a piece of AI art in the promotion or even in the content of one of your books,
Mm,
everybody is everybody disliked that. you know,
yeah,
like everybody is going to be pissed off at you. So don't do it, okay?
yeah. I would much rather see like clunky kind of hand-drawn things by someone who clearly is not like a professionally trained artist. At least there's
Mhm.
there's some heart in that. There's an intention.
Yeah,
You know, there's some work was put into this thing. Outside of just yeah.
definitely agreed. Um, yeah, I will always like I would always rather take like a human mess over a an automated over automated perfection, you know.
Yeah. And I think that's also why a lot of people are choosing the simplistic kind of retro monochrome style, because all of AI art is in this like kind of hyper realistic D&D 5e style.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why people might associate that with not want to associate their product with that kind of art style, is it draws suspicion of being AI in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking about this with my friends on my friend Melody's stream, which is that
Mm.
like she had mentioned that like it's hard to tell what's a Fortnite leak and what's actually like what's a Fortnite leak and what's something that someone made with AI because like they look the same. And the true is the same is true with 5e. It's like you could go into Midjourney and like put in some prompts and be like, oh shit, they're doing a Baldur's Gate 3 like full campaign book, and
Yeah, I would hate that if they did that.
that would suck ass. But like it's very easy to do um because there is a degree to which like it's all kind of becomes sludge. Like it's not to be mean about like specific people's art, but just like I think like the house style for D&D 5e has become like so boring.
very generic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even like Pathfinder art looks so much better. Like
Yeah, it has a more cartoony kind of stylized look to it that's more distinct than 5e's just kind of generic, make it look good, make it look realistic kind of
yeah.
mindset.
Um I love the like sharp edges in Pathfinder and like
Hmm.
the kind of like there's a lot of like nice like patterned clothing in Pathfinder art. Um
Oh yeah,
very
there's
like
more
specific
detail,
creatures, like kobolds look a
strangely.
certain way.
Yeah, one thing I tried to do for my setting is to have like a kind of distinct look for all the races and creatures that I would stick to or try to stick to vaguely. Obviously, there's variation, but yeah, like one thing I try to stick to is, for example, giving Black Sclera to tieflings and people who are part tieflings or part fiend or something like that. Um, so yeah, things like that is, I think they give you a kind of more consistent look where you like set up these like details of design that most people probably don't notice very much, but yeah, it makes for a more coherent thing that is harder to fake, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if the I actually don't know much about the lead Pathfinder artist. Let me look this up. Logan Bonner. I'm looking. Uh, I can't tell.
I mean, I've also heard some controversies about, especially first edition Pathfinder rulebooks and their
Right.
depictions of women. I don't know if you're familiar with that whole
No.
thing. It was basically just like, boob armor, cleavage, and things like that of that
Oh, okay.
nature
Well,
in abundance. But yeah, so that I guess that kind of comes with a more stylized and less realistic art style in a way. But well, not necessarily, but yeah, I guess if you're going for stylized all the time, you're gonna stylize, for example, men to be more masculine, women to be more that feminine, and
yeah,
things like that. So yeah, when you all the time I see this like kind of cartoony art style, much more cartoony than the Pathfinder books because those are kind of I guess semi-realistic. I don't know, but like all the time I see people drawing a kind of cartoony art style that just has this very strict kind of gender binary in it that kind of turns me off because I kind of draw people as a spectrum in a way where yeah I try not to differentiate too much, just hardline it as this is what a woman looks like and this is what a man looks like in my art. I guess it just comes with being trans or something. I don't know.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
similar. I draw a lot of little. Oh, I can't say that word on Twitch. Um, I draw. I draw a lot of. I draw a lot of funny little queer people. Um, but yeah, it's important. It's important and
Yeah.
special. Uh,
Yeah. It also it's also one like another thing that kind of happens in AI art a lot is that kind of exaggerating of the kind of very gendered appearances for people. If you look at like an AI illustration image, I don't know, graphic
yeah,
bitmap
picture.
of um of like a man and a woman standing next to each other. The man is like looks like he's in a completely different art style. The woman is just looks like a weird doll. It's very unsettling to me.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I uh, I feel as if it's I don't know. It's important to like fucking try. Like I don't know. It's
Yeah,
important to like try and vary things up. Like I just you know um. Oh yeah. So, speaking of art, do you mind if I show folks the stuff you did for Sapphic World? I think it's really
yeah,
good.
sure.
So this is the first piece that Victor did for Sapphic World, which is really good. It's the Noble Sweetheart and the Rainbow Groupie. Uh,
I got
having
very specific instructions for both of these.
yeah, I
Extremely specific.
this is the like Sapphic World also has a very specific style and very specific rules that had to be adhered to. Um,
Yeah, I tried.
you did a really good job on these, and then also the Legis Footstool and the Ring Knight fighting in Alcazar Lel. Uh, near the weird big lava what do you call it? Lava fish tank, which
Fish
is
tank,
fucking
yeah.
insane. Victor did so fucking good on this. Yeah. Pay Victor to do art for you. Well, actually, do you have commissions open? I probably shouldn't say that unless you have commissions
I
open.
always have commissions open. I can send
Okay,
you my commission sheet, in fact, if you want
please
to
do.
add
Yeah,
it on
pay
the.
Victor to do art for you, please, 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 peace, peace, peace,
I
peace,
would
peace.
also like to say that you don't actually have to pay me because I have work trades open
Do work trades also.
for for proofreading my book, but I am selective about it, sadly, because I am trying to stick to native English speakers
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
proofreading reasons. But yeah, so if you're not a native English speaker, then I am going to enforce my discriminatory practice of asking you to pay for commissions, sadly.
Fair.
Very sad.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, these are rotten, minimalistic, old school. Some cool stuff here. Um, yeah. Yeah, if you want to send that, I can put that in the chat.
oh yeah, I am. I mean, I have them in image form, so I guess you can put them up on the stream if you want or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I know they're. Yeah, I think they're safe for Twitch. Yeah. Just
Yeah, Twitch should really let me say the F slur. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. Like I used to be more against using the F slur, but yeah, these are Victor's rates. 15 for a portrait,
oh,
complex.
they're stretched a little bit, but yeah.
Oh yeah, that'll
Or are
happen.
they?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
fine. Yeah, the
my
rates are what they are, I guess.
yeah.
This is the highest that my rates have ever been, by the way. When I was starting out, I was doing full body illustrations for $10 a piece. I got to do like two, I think, for that price.
These rates are fucking insane. You should tip is what I'll say. You should definitely tip
The economy is in
Victor.
shambles.
The
That's all
economy's
I'm
in
gonna say.
shambles. Please tip
Fuller's Wall
Victor.
is in shambles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. You want to do the next story, and then we'll take a break after that.
Oh, well, hmm. Yeah, yeah, I can do that. I can do the next story.
Okay. Uh. Yeah. Let's talk about fucking. Let's talk about the Ben Riggs thread. Um.
Yes.
Okay. So
TTRPG discourse of the week, I guess.
this is such a long ass thread. So this person's thesis is the golden age of TTRPGs is dead. We are watching a bright and special time in the TTRPG industry. Hang on, wait, okay. I need to clear the venom from my voice and just like
Yeah, go into like DM mode, I guess.
neutral,
Narrate this for us.
neutral. Okay.
Yeah.
The golden age of TTRPGs is dead. We are watching a bright and special time in the TTRPG industry pass away before our eyes. Around the start of the 2010s, we saw the dawn of a new golden age of tabletop role playing games. Since then, huge numbers of new players have found the hobby thanks to Stranger Things and actual plays like Critical Role. These new fans discovered a vibrant and thrumming TTRPG industry. There was the Dimension 20, or I guess D20, the die, fantasy family of games dominated by D&D 5e, but rich with other games published under the OGL in the fertile depths of the old school Renaissance.
I love the
There were,
flowery language.
it's really good.
It's a
Um,
choice.
There were other mainstream publishers with storied brands, such as Call of Cthulhu, Deadlands, and Shadowrun. Lastly, there was a flourishing indie TTRPG scene that revolutionized what a TTRPG was, such as Apocalypse World. There were other mainstream publishers with storied brands, such as Call of Cthulhu. Wait, oh, okay. Uh, such as Call of
Whoops.
Cthulhu, Deadlands, and Shadowrun. Lastly, there was
Yeah, it's just I think he mistyped or something.
bearing a ring ended the Third Age of Middle Art. This influx of gamers created a rising tide that lifted all boats. Novice gamers started out playing D&D 5e, yes, but went on to discover other great games. Because of the OGL, countless companies and designers can make money creating for D&D 5e. Because of the increasing number of gamers, even strange, freaky, or weird TTRPG ideas can find an audience. Have you heard of Apollo 47 Technical Manual, the RPG? I have. But recent developments make clear that this radiant golden age is ending, as surely as the steam engine ended the Age of Sail or hobbits bearing a ring ended the Third Age of Middle Earth. The The doom of our time approaches. In the wake of the gaming license scandal the past winter, a number of companies have successfully launched new TTRPGs intended to move them past the possibility of Wizards of the Coast ever threatening their businesses ever again. Some of the games grossed in millions in crowdfunding campaigns. All have been positively reviewed.
Source?
Some cite the success of these games, which are intended to replace 5e/OTL content for the companies involved, as signs of the continued health and growth of the TTRPG industry. They are not. Rather, they are signs that the industry has peaked and may be about to enter a decline. Why?
Hypo.
Yeah. After
Ugh.
the open gaming license crisis of 2023, I became pessimistic about the damage the attempt to kill the OGL had done to our hobby. Others told me that the result of the crisis would be the blooming of 1,000 flowers. Discouraged from using 5e by Wizards of the Coast's attempt to kill the OGL, we would all get amazing new TTRPGs. Maybe every single one of these new TTRPGs is going to be amazing. Maybe every one will be so fun and captivating that lawns will go unmowed, pets unfed, and diapers unchanged because we're all so busy playing one of these games. How much longer is this? Oh god, it's so long.
It
Okay.
is quite long.
Um, he,
I
he
think we got to the main thesis,
yeah, and then he goes
maybe.
into like
History,
com-
background,
companies
something.
are asking fans to choose sides. This happened before the TSR split. Um, where's the really funny thing that he said? Let's look at his consequences. What is his yeah, what made the future look like? Uh, Sixth
Horrible,
edition will not do as
apparently.
well as fifth edition, maybe. No MCDM crowd RPG crowdfunding campaign will ever do better than this initial campaign to fund TTRPG. Just a lot of speculation. This was my favorite one. TTRPGs will become less interesting, less exciting, less creative, and despite all the new systems, it'll grow less diverse as it becomes even harder to make money in a TTRPG community broken into factions. I love Jay. I would be very surprised if I stopped making weird TTRPGs just because D&D became less popular. Smiley face. Uh,
So, I am forming an opinion on this that might be um, a little complex for me to explain.
I wanna hear your opinion on it.
Okay, so, I think at the root of this kind of drama, I guess, around this thread is a bit of a misunderstanding, maybe, because, um, he's clearly talking about like D&D likes, which is a whole different issue when it comes to like the OGL fiasco and things like that. But there's also actual indie TTRPGs. Like by actual indie TTRPGs, I mean like things that aren't similar to D&D at all. For example, like I don't know if I would count Suffolk World as that because I don't know the rules to the system, but like solo RPGs or RPGs that don't involve combat or adventuring and fantasy. And I think those are actually flourishing because of platforms like itch.io, Discords, things like that. All sorts of like more people doing like solo creative projects, um, things like that, right? And those are definitely getting more popular, I think, or there's more of them, as far as I can tell. But I think he's strictly talking about like D&D likes, and that's where the kind of different understanding of what he's talking about is coming from, maybe because he's saying TTRPGs, but what he actually means, I think, is like fantasy adventure RPGs.
I think even within that framework, he's wrong. Personally, like, like we live in a world where like fucking everything is privatized and monopolized, and it's like
Hmm.
it only makes things worse. It only makes things shittier. you know, at least to my estimation.
Yeah, one thing that I think I agree with him for this thread is generally I think if someone made a TTRPG specifically because they really liked 5e, but they wanted to something like legally distinct, I guess, then it probably wasn't gonna be made into like a really good system, in my opinion. If it's literally just we want to play 5e but not called 5e. If you, but I don't know if there were actually systems like that
Doesn't that
published.
I think there are, but I think that also contradicts every other point that he makes. I think that contradicts the point that like this is the dark age of RPGs because games that are like less, that are more creative are going to fail. it seems like actually games that are more creative are going to succeed because of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think so. But like, um, yeah, there's also the issue of, well, issue, topic, discussion, or however you want to call it, of people who are prominent figures within the D&D community, or prominent like companies or publishers switching to like making their own systems are gonna have kind of a head start no matter what they put out. Like, I feel like, MCDM publishing their own system is gonna get a lot of eyes on it, no matter like regardless of what it's actually like. Because like for example,
Right.
I haven't read the system, but I know there was a lot of hype for it just because of the publishers and because of their previous work. So yeah, and Critical Role, I think they put out their own thing, which was also kind of mixed. I think the reception of that.
It's Project
So
Blackfire.
yeah, yeah, that was also a thing. I kind of forgot what that was about. Obviously, Pathfinder drew a lot of new people, which I guess is good for Pathfinder.
It's the Cobalt Press thing. Huh. Yeah, I just I definitely agree with you. I think like it's clear where his focus is. I just think it's kind of myopic. I think it's like a little I think it's a little silly. Like
Yeah, yeah, it's very much. I think he's staying within a very particular bubble and not seeing that there's things outside of it that might contradict what he's saying. Is my reading of this take, but like it's kind of like the other controversial or other um yeah, I guess controversial is a good term for it. D&D take that I think you replied to as well, which I didn't reply to. The one where someone was like, DMs shouldn't be afraid of limiting their players at session 0, and it was like a list of players' handbook races from 5e. I don't know if you remember that,
oh
but I
yeah,
think you
no, that's
replied
my friend
to it.
Hodag and he's right.
Yeah, I agreed with that take,
Yeah, no, he's right.
especially for like newer DMs and things like that. But a lot of people were genuinely kind of upset with the take in responses like, "Oh, how can you do this? Like you're a bad DM," and things like that. And I was like, "Wow, okay, there's clearly some misunderstandings that I might have gotten into if I had responded to it more vocally instead of just like liking the tweet, which you can also probably get in trouble for some people."
I think that there's some really complex cultural elements that have made people
Yeah,
insane. In the sense that
yeah,
like
especially on Twitter.
there were a lot of people being like, you don't like Dragonborn and Tieflings? That's like homophobic. And it's like, no, you've convinced yourself that playing as a Tiefling is queer. They're just demon people. Like
Yeah,
that's just something that you've projected onto the game.
even though
Um,
there's a lot of overlap between queer people and people who enjoy demons or have demon characters or things like that. I'm not sure what the exact correlation is, but I think it's high.
yeah, I for me it's like my personal taste in running is about like I am often trying to create a game that my players will enjoy, and if that means like limiting stuff, if people if I'm like, hey, I want to play like fucking I want to play Pathfinder with you all, and they're like, oh, okay, we'd love to play something that's like a bit darker, a bit more grounded. I'll be like, okay, let's play like humans, elves, dwarves, gnomes. Like, we're
Mm,
not gonna play fucking there's so many weird races in Pathfinder and ancestries in Pathfinder. Um, but
yeah,
also like if I'm running for like my kind of fun like queer friends who are like all furries, I'm gonna be like, all right, we're just gonna do all like, pick whatever the fuck you want. It's about context. It's about uh
yeah.
I think there's also like some frustration with that. Understandably, I think there's some frustration with that with the Hodag tweet where it's like why do you care about half elves but not half orcs? But also like that's just
I
kind of
think he
a
clarified that was he is
he's old
do
school.
they use he him? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he clarified that like it was like a strictly mechanical thing
Yeah.
where you can play as an elf, but in lore be a half elf, which I'm kind of in favor of. Like, for example, if someone came to me and was like, I want to play like a special Fey person who has some kind of Fey ancestry, like was originally a human but then encountered some Fey or something and was transformed, but my mechanics are that of an elf, I would be like, okay, that's cool, like whatever, because either there's no race for the specific thing you want to be, or you for some reason want the mechanics of something else because you feel like it fits your concept more. Like I think that's valid. Like you don't need a specific mechanical option for all the possible plot stuff that you want, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
half elves in 5e are definitely busted specifically, but I think like I think part of it is also like what game are you playing? Like I would be pissed off if someone were doing like did limits in like Fellowship, but like or like hell if someone like ran Sapphic World and was like you can only play a Wayfolk, an elf, or a Danon, I would be pretty pissed at them. Uh, but
Yeah,
like
because you have a different kind of fantasy, I guess, different
yeah,
different vibes.
it's about the game. It's about the game. It's about like the table. It's I think that like I think Hodag maybe put it in a bit of a harsh way, but also like I think
I think he didn't anticipate people taking it so far in their responses, maybe.
yeah.
Because I think he thought he made himself clear and then apparently he didn't because people were, oh my god, I can't believe you're telling me that I can't play as a Dragonborn. Like that was just like an example, is my understanding of the tweet.
Yeah. Um I I hope the people can understand where Hodag is coming from. Hodag is a very cool person. I think people accusing Hodag of being queerphobic are out of their minds. I do actually agree with my mutual Ava Terra that like D&D has an obsession with race that's kind of weird and like
Yeah.
not specifically Hodag, but like the fact that like player option like
It
it's
forces you into a
weird.
very kind of bioessentialist mindset, definitely. Like
Yeah.
the 5e rules themselves, which is something I've also struggled with my setting because I, the more exposed I am to like TRPG discourse, the more aware I am of the issues around that and what it actually stems from, which is like really horrible like bioessentialist stuff. Um, yeah, the more I'm like, do I really want to play with those kinds of rules? But then I'm like, I'm writing a thing for 5e, like I can't change the system within the book, so all I can do is like give guidance as to like, oh, you can take traits from different races if your character was from like, for example, a different place, or something like that, or consult with your DM if you want to make changes, whatever. I try to make it clear that it's not like if you're an elf, you must be, I don't know, you must be very intelligent or something like that. you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I in the like copy, uh, what do we call it? The editing. I forgot the word that we're using, but I've
Proofreading
given you some feedback that's been like, hey, this
with your
this is a
discourse
little D&D
adjacent.
brained, you know, and I hope that
Yeah,
feedback
yeah,
has
the
been helpful.
goblin the goblin thing was, I don't know why I wrote that. I think I just blanked.
But that's
And
that's
I was
like
like, quick, write something.
it's so fair because it's like you know, yeah, like of course, like this person's family got killed by goblins because in D&D, goblins are, they're a stat block, right? Like they
Yeah,
might be a
but it
race, but
didn't
they're also
make
a stat
sense
block.
because since I wrote chapter 2, I also wrote chapter 4 wherein goblins get their own lore and they're completely unlike D&D goblins. They're more like little like fake creatures in the forest and
Yeah,
they pick mushrooms and they live in trees. So it's a completely different like vibe and appearance and everything. And I was like, that makes no sense. But
yeah,
because I didn't have that world building at that point, that's why you need proofreaders.
yeah, and you got to go back and
Um,
you got to sift through
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly.
Um, I think something that like I've really noticed with, or not noticed, but like, is a theme that I've explored a lot in like my recent writing. I think especially Sapphic World is this idea that like, or not even idea. It's kind of an inner conflict of um, like what can be helped, like what about us can be helped, right?
Mm,
Like we. I think about a lot about the Dan Olson Minecraft video essay where he talks about like the idea that like bringing like that the game is like a colonial fantasy, but also
mm,
like what like we live in a world of colonial fantasies. We live
yeah.
and breathe like extraction and subjugation and like uh and like enslavement. And so like, you know, uh if we choose to fantasize about that sort of stuff, if we choose to fetishize that sort of stuff, like I mean that's a big element of Sapphic World, obviously. Like, does that make us bad or does that make us okay? And like, what happens when that fetishization and that fantasization rolls back in on itself and produces ideology? Um,
I am, yeah, I am generally against like making very harsh moral judgments about people based on the fiction they consume, especially if they creating is a kind of a different thing, but especially consuming things, it's like if you're playing, for example, D&D, you may not be aware of the background, right,
mhm,
of the whole colonial politics at play. So yeah, especially if you're, for example, not from the US, which is another thing that I um, kind of struggled with for my book, which is um, I don't have the same education, I guess, and the same mindset that a lot of young people in the US have as far as like, um, racial kind of politics and social justice and things like that. And
mhm.
that's something that I've been trying to educate myself on. But I still have some kind of um, blind spots, and that's also another reason why I work with native English speakers as far as proofreaders go, because yeah, I'm writing for, let's face it, mostly an American audience, so I'm kind of trying to make sure that I don't accidentally do something that is gets read as something that I didn't mean, for like cultural reasons.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot we can learn, and there's a lot that we can, you know, uh, there's a lot like there's a lot that we can learn. There's a lot that we can't learn. There's a lot that we don't want to learn. There's a lot that we'll live with. There's a lot that we'll die with. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's just about like, um, it's about where your boundaries are on that. I guess like as a
mm,
person, and and like what makes you personally uncomfortable and what makes other people personally uncomfortable, and like living in a multitudinous and like a world with people who have very diverse opinions and thoughts on things, and I think that's okay, and I think that's like what makes the world beautiful, but also it can be hard. It can be hard to see someone where you're like, oh, I want to teach you the way that I see these things, but also maybe that's not what has to be like, you know, you don't have to do that. That
yeah,
person
because
never asked you to do
also
that.
sometimes it can also go in the opposite direction where it almost feels like a mm, kind of sense of superiority maybe that Western leftists might have because like they've figured out the like social justice things and now they're gonna like have to educate everyone else. That kind of reads kind of icky to me. It can at
Yeah,
least. So I'm kind of cautious because I have kind of my own sensibilities, which some of them are something that I'm trying to fix or change, I guess. But yeah, some of those things are actually just cultural, I guess. Like for example, my preference to like my being kind of biased towards like more gritty things on
hmm,
things like that. That's kind of I think I can attribute that to kind of a generally more kind of cultural trend. So yeah, and there's different things that maybe probably go over people's heads, but for me they're like kind of distinct. So I try to make my own thing while being kind of aware of how people might feel about it in the West.
yeah,
So yeah, it's kind of a tough balance to strike because sometimes I get feedback from a proofreader that I'm like, okay, this makes perfect sense. Like I've had a few bits of feedback from you, for example, that I was like, okay, this makes perfect sense. I can see why you would say that and suggest that, but like that goes against something else that I figured out for my own setting, and I want to stick to that
yeah,
because it's like a set of assumptions, I guess, that you have. about
I
your own setting and your own work that you want to keep coherent.
I definitely feel that. I I don't know. Sometimes I feel like as like a trans woman, I'm almost like coming from like a completely different like culture to like other English speaking people because it's like I'll say
Yeah,
something about like dolls or witches and people will be like, "What the fuck are you talking about? That sounds insane." Like why would you let someone deconstruct you and put you back together as like a sex thing? And it's like cuz it's hot. Um yeah, I think I think the most important thing is just to be respectful of other people's
yeah.
cultures and beliefs and also like, I think it's okay to explain how you feel about a thing, but you don't always have to be
Mm.
like I'm going to make you feel the way I feel because I'm superior, right?
Yeah, I definitely kind of try to, like I said, like find a kind of balance between what what I get suggested and what I set out to do on and make in the
Hmm.
first place. Um, I was gonna say something else, but I forgot.
Um
Oh yeah, I'm like I'm definitely more concerned with the opinion of people who might feel like a particular, for example, race or culture in my setting is similar to their own or inspired by their own,
hmm.
than the opinion of like random like white white liberals on Twitter who might be like yeah interpreting things in a certain way. Um, yeah, so it's really complicated. Like I don't know, it's kind of a minefield to navigate, especially like I said, as someone who um, doesn't have the kind of exposure to um, yeah modern kind of progressive politics in their own country. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I gotta go feed my dog, so we're gonna take a break
Mm-hmm.
before our last story, and then we'll do that, and we'll answer my fucking email. All
Nice.
right. We'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna turn the mics off too. And we are back. Hi everyone. Sorry, that's
Yes, we are back.
I like to do
Oh,
the silly little like Markiplier style thing sometimes. I think it's funny.
yeah,
Um,
it is. I would say this.
awesome. Okay. Um, last thing, is not discourse, and it's a very important thing to talk about.
Hmm.
Um, and we're gonna actually get serious for a second.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, um, Janelle Jacques, who was involved in Dungeons and Dragons, Quake, Age of Empires, Halo Wars, a bunch of other stuff, um, passed away on January 10th at the age of 67. Um, and I thought it would be important to acknowledge both that, she was a trans icon, an important figure for trans rights in the United States, um, and also a, you know, really important figure in dungeon design, in level design across video games and TTRPGs. And I yeah, I thought it'd be important to recognize all that she's done, um, and worked on the home arcade versions of Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, um, and in since 2012 worked with Dragon Girl Studio and Old Skull, um, and was diagnosed in late 2023 with Guillain-Barre. Is it Barre or Barre? I'm not sure. Um, syndrome. Um, there is uh, a fundraiser for her medical bills. They're about $4,000 away. So please, if you have money, um, you know, send it in the direction of those bills. Obviously it was meant for care, but now it is for, I imagine, also funerary, because that can be really expensive. Um, and also an article on EN, or a thread on EN World about this, mentioning her work on Dark Tower, Caverns of Thracia, Dragon Mountain, um, and yeah, I guess. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I was reading those articles you sent earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
I was just really amazed by how many things one person can work on,
Yeah,
like within such a broad, like, from video games to TTRPGs, and like, as far as I understand, both design and art. It's just a very vast portfolio for
yeah.
one person.
Was also let me like if you look in the activism section, was the creative director for the Transgender Human Rights Institute in Seattle. Was involved in the petition to create Leela's Law, outlawing conversion therapy, and yeah, was involved in the petition that caused Barack Obama to call for the banning of conversion therapy in the U.S. So,
Yeah.
um, very cool person, um, and I hope I hope that I hope that she's well remembered, and that folks do everything they can to take care of her family, her wife Rebecca Heineman, um, and just broadly, I hope that people take care of each other, and especially other trans women in the RPG space.
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of trans femme representation, I guess, within the TTRPG industry and just the video game industry in general. Um, maybe as far as I've kind of gathered
No,
from
you're right.
just looking at news articles, I think it's a yeah, it's a considerable demographic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, so it's definitely a major figure based on just the amount of credits that yeah, that they've listed.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
it's
okay.
also sorry.
Oh, you're good.
It's also rare that um I don't know if that's just my kind of exposure to different news sources, but most of the time when like a major figure, I guess, passes away, a lot of time, there's discourse starts and people are like, oh no, actually they were just like a really shitty person or something, and it's rare that someone, you know, is just this universally kind of um, loved
Yeah,
and appreciated, which is a nice change because most of the time I see just, someone dies and all of a sudden there's all sorts of like people, you know, being like, actually, we shouldn't celebrate this person's achievements because they did so and so. And yeah, it's kind of rare that we get just a positive figure, especially in like a hobby like this, which is very has a lot of controversial figures in it.
yeah,
Like, yeah, very very kind of cis straight man dominated, I think, and white as well.
yeah. Uh,
Probably TTRPGs.
she like everything that I've seen on Twitter, at least for talking about her, has been very positive, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's very sad, but yeah, I guess with that we'll move on to our emails. I actually have a lot of questions, so we'll try and get through what we can. I only have
Okay.
about 30 minutes left. So our last bird, Apocrypha, flying in.
Mm.
Oh, there we go. And yeah, so I think what I'll do is I'll just send you these in Discord.
Mm.
Um, so our first, we have 8 questions from Goblin. Thank you again for
Mm.
all the questions, Goblin. I appreciate it. With the subject Dovecote questions. So, first question: what do you think of the rule set for Celestial Bodies by Binary Star Games and Charlotte Laskowski? The hit rolls using a d66, with each d6 representing a point on the 6x6 grid. The mechs are also represented by grids filled with equipment, so specific parts of each mech can be targeted at the same time as just rolling a hit. So I have not read that yet. I have seen a lot about it, and I really want to read it. It seems very cool. Um, it seems neat, is I guess what I'll say. It's a cool game. Uh, I'm excited to read it and try it out myself. Um, no, you can send as many questions as you want. I appreciate it. Um, uh, yeah. Um, ba, 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 ba. I don't know if you've seen Celestial Bodies at all, Victor.
I have not. I am very very much not familiar with that.
That's fair. Um, sorry, I stole candy from downstairs when
That's
I went to
fine.
feed my dog. Um, uh, it's more of a functional question, but I'll answer it. Um,
I just had a little clarification
oh,
in Discord DMs because I'm being annoying.
no, you're good. It's Laskovsky. Sorry about that.
Yes. Yeah, I know
Yes,
it's very common because Polish last names tend to end with ski and it's a W, and yeah, people pronounce it like w, and it's v because it's the same in my name because which is spelled with a W in Polish.
that makes
So
sense.
yeah.
I don't know how that person pronounced it, but yeah. Um,
Oh yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's they could pronounce it the English way as well.
yeah, I'm not sure. I've been asked a question that I will answer because it's more of a
Hmm.
question for me. Rather than simply explaining the rules like in the last question, could I send a highlighted and social cropped PDF in future instances, or is that a breach of your ethics due to it writing the line of pirating smaller creators' work slash potential security risk? Send me screenshots, and that will work. Um, yeah. Question 3. Feelings on games with more esoteric settings, such as Troika or Greed. Do you think the potential alienation of readers is worth the novelty? Uh,
I have a
yeah.
take on this, I think.
Give me the take.
Yeah, so my take is I really love esoteric stuff. I don't know the exact games they listed, so I won't be if you could like find them on itch or something and pull them up just so I
Yeah,
get like a vague vibe.
I know there's some. Here, is it Tricon Itch? Here we go.
Lines
Trika
are
Numinous
mentioned.
Edition. Yeah. So Trika is a fantasy game with a with one class called the Pond Pisser, uh,
Incredible.
and Greed appears to be like a I don't know what is the setting. The sun is a Bunsen burner, and the weather outside ranges from frigid to arctic to kill on exposure. The only places that contain human life are oil taverns, immense interlinked caverns where folks live together and burn oil, and a captured demon to keep warm. Yeah, this sounds like it rules. The Plero realm.
Oh yeah.
This is fucking awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, I love weird TTRPGs with like weird settings.
yeah.
It's great. I don't know what the experience of playing it would be like because it feels like it's trying to emulate a very specific kind of story and genre, I guess. Which yeah, I think is the opposite of that is pretty much the mainstream of D&D, which is you can pretty much use it for anything with different levels of success. But like these kinds of games are definitely geared towards a very specific experience. So that can probably be a turn-off for a lot of people.
I love freak
Where,
shit. I love like
yeah,
hyper specific freak shit
yeah,
where you can't make your own setting in it. I think it's good.
yeah. It really is a matter of just having different systems go about how specific they are, I guess,
Yeah.
differently. Yeah.
Um. Question 4 from Goblin. What boundaries do you think need to be pushed in the TTRPG space? Fucking and sucking.
Yes.
Sorry, I yelled.
Um, I think my take is, as far as I understand the question about boundaries, because I don't know if you're talking about boundaries in discourse or in published products or in actual like game sessions.
It's general, I guess.
Yeah. So I feel like it's definitely a group by group thing where if your group is okay with anything, then like anything goes. I'm gonna turn your character into like a monstrous spider and I'm gonna describe it graphically. You know, that's kind of I can do all sorts of things on the spectrum of like players with very strict boundaries of players with basically no boundaries. So it's like it's definitely a case by case basis for me. As far as like discourse, it I don't know. If you're in the TRPG discourse, then you should probably be prepared for like things being discussed that you may not have considered,
I
I
think this is
guess.
more about like the spaces and the as in like the art space, like what content. Uh, which yeah, sucking and talking for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I am kind of a contemporary art vaguely weirdo, so I'm definitely all for like doing weird unconventional things in general,
Yeah,
or writing about
transformation,
them or illustrating them. Yeah.
weird shit, going to realms,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely useful to have like a content warning of some sort, or
safety.
if it's yeah, if it's for example like things that are that could be triggering or something, because I don't think going outside of boundaries always has to be things that would give you a higher age rating. For example, if it was a movie,
Mhm.
it could also just be weird, unconventional like storytelling, you know. But
Yeah,
either way, it's probably good to preface it with some kind of like, this isn't for everyone. This is for people who are comfortable with this and that, you know, just so people are aware before they, for example, buy a campaign book and it's filled with, you know, like you said, sucking and fucking or whatever. You know, they might want a warning, a heads
yeah.
up, if you will.
Actually, I have another one. I think the average player should be more exposed to playing as characters outside of their own character. Like I think that Armor Stir is great for this, where it's like you like during downtime you actually like play as the other factions in some cases. Um,
Mm.
I think there's like a lot of space for that that's just like not really being utilized right now, and I think there like that's an important thing is like learning how to I think more players need to learn how to like leave the perspective of their character and explore from there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um.
I generally am up for like weird things as far as like character switching and things like that. I haven't really done it, but I think it's always a fun concept where someone talks about like, for example, a campaign story where they let I don't know, they let a player who left the campaign decide what to do with like one of the villains or something like that, or an NPC outside between sessions.
Yeah.
Um, all kinds of like I don't know, doing some kind of like what you might call playable flashbacks or playing as commoners on session one and then dying. I all kinds of like these types of wacky kind of narrative things I'm always excited about.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not very attached to like playing as a particular character. I'm more about like cool things happening in general. So that's kind of my approach where I know a lot of people are very attached to their characters. So they, for example, don't want anything bad to happen to their characters, and it's like a boundary they have. And that's a different kind of game than the type I like to play.
Hmm.
I guess also depending on the group because my Dragon Heist group and Heart of Darkness group by extension was also very attached to characters. They were more lighthearted than I would be by default. So again, we kind of scaled down the gruesome horror stuff, but they were fine with it as well. But it was yeah, it was definitely more of a kind of okay, probably shouldn't kill off these people at random just with a random encounter or something.
Right.
I had that kind of awareness of they would probably be upset
I'm gonna
if
save
that
question
happened.
5 for
Hmm.
my guest in 2 weeks because it's a Lancer question.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
I don't know
I
if
know
you've Lancer
nothing about
opinions.
Lancer.
Okay, so I'll save that for 6. Um, question 6. I think we kind of covered. It's how do you think designers in the Imperial Corps with fewer resources can make sure they are not perpetuating colonialist ideals or ideas? Well, it may be possible for some to hire a sensitivity consultant. It's obviously beyond the means of the smaller creator. Uh, there's a lot of reading that you can do. I like people talk about this stuff all the time on Twitter.
Hmm.
Like frankly, I think there's a lot
Yeah,
of or like
I
make friends,
remember.
ask them about it. Ask them like
Yeah,
what are the fantasy elements that like you think are like, you know, ask them how they feel about like certain things, you know.
yeah, hell yeah. Also, I remember I got into an argument with some English guy who wasn't like right wing necessarily, but he had this weird tweet that really struck me. Basically, kind of assuming that English is like the default language and not even considering that people speak different languages. I there's more context to that, but whatever. And I basically came at him like, "Oh, you're in the Imperial Corps, whatever, whatever." I mean, I didn't start with that, but I was like, maybe consider that people speak different languages and things like that. And he was like, "No,"
Yeah.
basically. So I was like, "Okay, and that is not a discussion I want to be having." I mean, I'm all for arguing with people on Twitter, but there is a certain limit past which it's just nonsense. So yeah, if people really don't want to get educated, then there's nothing you can do. They're just gonna remain kind of, mm, yeah,
Yeah. No, that's real. Um
yeah.
uh,
I think one factor that makes it really difficult to be aware, I guess, and conscious of other cultures as someone living in the US, which you can of course correct me on because that's just my impression, is you don't really learn languages at school as a mandatory thing, as far as I'm aware.
I did,
So
but
yeah,
yeah, not everyone.
that's like for us obviously because English is mandatory, and English is one other most likely European language. You kind of get everyone's bilingual by default pretty much, so you get exposed to English and by extension English speaking culture from like the age of like I don't know 4 or 5 I guess.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that and once you speak two languages, you can it's much easier to pick up subsequent ones. So if you, for example, want to get if you're interested in some other culture, like some non-European culture, let's say, you can always pick up another language, and it's easier to do once you already know two than if you only know one and you wouldn't even know where to start because you don't know how to learn a different language and a different culture, I
Yeah,
think.
that makes sense. I mean, I learned Spanish from elementary school, but I don't know about other
Yeah.
people. Yeah, it's definitely uh, Americans are very ignorant. I think I think learning, I think reading and like being curious is really the main thing.
Yeah. It is an interesting thing because when I interact with Americans all the time, they're very conscious of like because you've had the whole social justice thing like we talked about in the previous section, right? About being more aware of like racism and colonial things and things like that.
Mhm.
So I think Americans are definitely more conscious of that than, for example, people in Poland are. But like simultaneously, it's kind of like less awareness of the specific cultures that exist, and more just like a general sense of we should treat everyone equally, you know,
Yeah,
which like knowledge about particular cultures and the kind of mindset that a lot of progressives have is are kind of two different things, I think, because you can know a lot about a different culture and still be kind of racist.
yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Question 7. What do you think the place for pornographic content is? What do you think is the place for pornographic content in our in TTRPGs? While many bring up concerns of misuse, most, if not all of those, can be discarded by simply having adult discussions with one's playgroup. I gotta move away from my mic for this 1 second. On the fucking cover.
Yes.
No. Um,
uh,
I think that so Kickstarter approves stuff, and like all the crowdfunders approve stuff very nonchalantly. Um, put pornography in your books. Just don't say it's in there. Uh, put something on like an earlier page. This is like, yeah, there's pornography in this, but don't say that there's porn in your crowdfunder. Uh, like that.
yeah,
That's
and
what I'm gonna do with
also
Sapphic World.
I think there's a difference where between like making a book that has content, let's just say broadly,
Mhm.
and making a book that is specifically, I guess, pornographic in nature. I know if you can have a TTRPG book that also doubles as pornography, but it's like there's a difference between having that kind of content in there as just a neutral thing in the setting, obviously because we assume that things like that exist in the setting. We just in most products we don't talk about them. Um, but if you choose to like portray things like that and topics like that, which I do in my book as well, which I don't know if you were around for any of these themes. I don't think they are as prominent in chapters 1 and 2, but when you get into like chapter 4, 5, and 6, it's definitely, especially 5 and 6. There are some I put it as suggestive themes. I have content warnings at the start of the book, so yeah, it's like I don't like have like full-on nudity, for example, anywhere in the book, but yeah, there is content. Let's just
Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's fine and normal if you just make it clear that the book contains things like these.
Um, I drew um I drew what I would describe as a chain gun dog cock for Autopsy Feast. Um, it's probably the most pornographic thing that I've drawn for an RPG. Um, it's just it's an alien that has it's a sentient alien that has a huge fucking knotted chain gun with like veins and stuff. It's good. Uh, yeah. Uh, I'm not necessarily I'm not so precious with this stuff. Like I think it's very important for books that do contain sexual themes to like talk about like how you might deal with players who might be less comfortable with them. But I also
Yeah,
think that like you shouldn't stop yourself. Like I think it's time. I think it's time for RPGs to get fucked up and horny and to come.
yeah. I mean, it could be awkward as well, because I'm assuming that most people play RPGs with their friend group and not like,
Mhm.
a polycule. So
Yeah,
to get into like really sexual like topics with like your friends with whom have a platonic relationship, that might be kind of awkward depending on the circumstances. But like if everyone is like an adult about it,
yeah, it's
it's
fair.
definitely more of a player issue than a content issue,
Yeah.
I would say.
Question 8. I have just realized I assumed you were a furry for some reason. To clear that up, do you consider yourself a furry? Let me just I am a game designer, not because I don't have a persona, because I choose to have many. Um, I hope that answers your question.
Can
uh,
you leave that image on the screen? I think it really adds to the atmosphere.
yeah, I'll leave it on there. Um, I guess the answer is I am. I wouldn't say I'm a furry like cultural. I feel like calling myself a furry would be like, oh, you have a fursuit then, or like you go to furry cons. Like no, but like
It will be
I
appropriation.
yeah, I have a lot of respect for furries, and
Mm,
I think they're important, and I do a lot of things that are like furry adjacent. So that's kind of my
yeah,
answer. Um,
I can see that being a thing that makes sense. I'm kind of the same way with like golfs, for example, where I kind of feel adjacent to golfs, but I wouldn't really call myself a golf because like I don't put in as much effort into like my appearance as golfs do, and I really like admire the like people who like can people who have the kind of energy and just motivation to put on like a full face of makeup every day, for example, or that keep their hair like dyed a certain color and things like that, and buy really like specific like clothes and accessories. It's very takes a lot of commitment, so yeah, I wouldn't want to appropriate that, I
yeah.
guess.
Uh, so that's all the goblin questions. I might actually. I'm gonna save the rest of these for next episode for the one with
Hmm.
Emily, because we're running out of time, and I gotta get to a I gotta get to a Planet Fist playtest with Jess with
Oh,
my friend Jess.
I drew maps for that actually,
Oh
self
hell yeah!
promo. Yeah,
I
I don't know if you're aware.
I knew that Jess knew you. I didn't know that that was specifically the
Yeah,
connection that rules.
I am the cartographer as far as I recall, the only one, maybe. I don't know.
Hell yeah!
I think I'm the only one. So yeah, we figured out the kind of specific style for the maps. So yeah,
Very
it's
cool.
neat, I would say.
All right. So, yeah, we're gonna wrap up there. Is there anything else you wanna show people before, or tell people before we wrap up?
I have a YouTube channel and I have an itch page. So I guess I'm gonna link the itch page because it's more professional adjacent, I guess,
Sure.
which is where I put um all my D&D stuff and TTRPG stuff by extension.
Hell yeah.
If you could like, I don't know if you want to show it on the screen or something,
Oh
but
yeah.
I'm
Let me
gonna
hang on.
send you the
I'll
link
send that. Hang on. I'm
because
pretty sure I have that.
yeah, I have a few different things.
Here we go. Okay. Got your itch. There you go.
So it's probably the most serious self promo I can do.
Yeah.
Um,
Navypink.itch.io. Please give that check that out. Awesome. Well,
yeah,
thank you all for watching. Uh, I'm going to raid my friend Melody Burst. It is her birthday stream. I will be on there at like midnight EST in like fucking 4 hours. So keep an eye out. They're playing modded Lethal Company right now with some really fun mods, including the VRM mod where they all have their like Vroids on, which is very cute. Um, so yeah, go watch that, and we're gonna wrap up there. Thank you for being
yeah,
on, Victor.
yeah. Thanks for having me. It was definitely a good discussion that we've
Hell yeah.
had.
All right. Take care.
Remember, if
Bye.
you don't like what you see, you can change it. It's up to you, really. Goodbye, good luck, and have fun!